Allow your eyes to close. And as we do in every yoga class, find your optimal position. And in this class, particularly, when we're focusing on the lower back and the SI area, we don't want to suffer. It's never a good idea to suffer. So finding a place where you can sit well, where your pelvis and your body feel heavy on whatever you're sitting. And there's a sense of lightness in your upper body. Very little muscular engagement. Letting go of the belly so that it can respond to the deep breathing. Starting to let the breath be in your primary focus. And then taking a moment to notice the dance between the inhale and the opening of the belly, and the exhale and the relaxing or moving back towards the body in the belly. Without doing anything, just noticing that dance. And continue that easy rhythm. I like 1-to-1 ratio to start just because it gives us a really nice harmony, nice balancing breath. But as you feel comfortable and without doing abdominal contraction, start to exhale a little bit longer. Focusing on the exhale. And just by its nature, as you lengthen the exhale, you'll notice a little bit of engagement in the abdomen, but you're not actually doing it. Your body's doing it. You might also notice that when you inhale, there's a sense of your body wanting to move a little bit forward. And when you exhale, there's a sense of your body wanting to move a little bit backward. You might not move at all, but you might notice that. Keeping the focus on the exhale, letting the inhale just open naturally. Breathing in and out gently through the nose. As you feel ready, slowly open your eyes and come back. So we always start with that kind of centering. It's very familiar to most of us. But when I was researching this class today, I came upon a little bit of information that I think is really important. And it has to do with deep diaphragmatic breathing, which is what you just did, and what we call vagal tone. And some of you might have heard about the vagus nerve, which is the largest bundle of nerves that comes from our brainstem and innervates our organs and our tissues in our torso. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because if we live with pain, I don't care what kind, low grade, high grade, intermittent, there's always this fight or flight response going on. There's a little bit of like, you know, I better not do that, or I have to be careful, or, you know, if you feel anything, you go eat, you know, and it sets off this pattern that we have, that we're a little bit on guard. And there was a lot of discussion in and around lower back health and this vagal tone. So when the vagus nerve is toned, and you do that through this diaphragmatic breathing, it actually stimulates our parasympathetic nervous system, which we know is our fight or flight, rest and digest, right? So we want to keep sending that signal back to the body, like, you're all right, you're safe, everything's going to be okay. Okay, so we always start with that in a yoga class, but that's a practice that you can do whenever. Okay, I would suggest daily. When we're talking about stability and SI joint, low back, I'm going to guess that unless we've had a injury where we know we have a disc problem, we know we have a vertebra problem, about 80% of the time, and if you are practicing yogi, this is even more common, dancers, gymnasts, those kinds of people, they do repetitive movements over and over and over again, and we stretch out, if we want to use that language, the ligaments around the SI joint, which is the ilium, our pelvis, and our sacrum. I don't know if you know what those look like. I don't have a picture to show you, but you know, if you could imagine these, let's just say these are my pelvises, my right and left pelvises. And in the middle, there's a triangle, only it's upside down. And they work together in tandem, okay? And they work pretty tightly together, but there is a joint between them. And what happens is we start to excessively pull on these ligaments with all the twisting and all the triangles and all the forward bends and all the things, without understanding our dynamics of anatomy. And we start to overstretch these ligaments. And then we have this chronic issue going on of instability. And our intuitive reaction to that, because you feel that tightness, what is it we want to do? We want to stretch it out, right? We want to twist, we want to pull, we want to pop it, we want to do something to like release it. And that's our intuitive nature. But what are we actually doing? We're actually making it more loose. It releases it for a moment, but then it comes back. So today I'm going to work a lot on stability. Stability before mobility. Always, always, always. So when we're talking about this area of the body, we typically we move around in these really unstable positions, very unsupported. And it makes our body hang in space off of this particular area of our pelvis and our lower back. So I want you to remember that our pelvis and our sacrum and our lower spine particularly all work in like a dance together. So the common language is where the sacrum goes, or where the spine goes, the sacrum follows, or it should be where the sacrum goes, the spine follows. You don't lock your pelvis in place and then try to rotate, especially if you have low back stuff going on. Okay, not without consciousness, not without pain. So it's kind of a harder practice then, when it's like, well, what else? What can I do if I can't twist and I can't hang? So we're going to go through some things today, and I'm just checking my notes because I had a bunch of things I wanted to make sure I said to you. The primary points I want you to remember: neutral spine, always the best. And that's when you're seated, when you're standing, even when you're sleeping. Symmetrical versus asymmetrical actions. We're going to go over that while we're practicing. Stability versus stretching. We just talked about that. And lifestyle. So I'm just going to touch on this real quickly before we start. We can do all the good stuff in a yoga practice, And then we can go out into the world and do all of our crazy. And a common one for instability in the lower back and sacrum is sitting in a chair and crossing your leg over. And that immediately torques your lower back and your sacrum. Standing cocked on one leg. Here's a really common one. This is a problem I'm having. And I started working with all these pillows in my bed because of it. I lay on my side and I lay on my left and my right leg drops over the top of my left leg. And I stay there for hours while I'm sleeping. And then I get up and I'm like, why does my back hurt? Oh my God, right? So how many people put pillows between their legs? Yes, you know that trick. So when you put a thick pillow between your legs and you lay on your side, that will not happen. And then your back is more in neutral. So if we didn't have these overstretched ligaments, we wouldn't have to worry about it. But if we have this chronically going on, we do start to have to think about these things. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is stand. We're going to go to our mat and stand. And I'd like you guys to all have a block. We're going to work with a block and a strap today as much as we can. And the first thing we're going to do is stand with the block. And you guys are all familiar with a lot of this action, but I'm going to move it around a little bit. So block, not like the skinny position between your legs, go to the wider position between your legs. And right away, you know you're going to have to put your feet a little bit wider, but you're not all the way close together. And there's a reason for this when we're talking about the SI area. Most people feel more neutral, better in their lower back when their legs are not all the way closed or close together. Okay? Now I want you to stand in a way where this part of the front part of the block's not sticking way out. It might get in your way. And standing in neutral here, just normal Tadasana, arms down by your side. You can turn your palms forward. Now, gently think about your big toe and squeezing the block a little bit. I want you to be about 10 or 20% of the block squeeze. Okay? I don't want you to put dents in your legs. It's never a good idea. Some of you I'm looking at and your block is skinny. Can you change it? I'm going to call you out. All right, so we're going to breathe here. So what I want you to do is inhale and rise your arms up and keep the attention to the block. Simple movement, nothing hard. Exhale and letting your arms release down. So bring your feet in a little closer if your legs are wider than your hips. You can see that my legs are parallel to my own hips. They're not like, I'm not standing like this, okay? Really important here. As you inhale the next time, keeping all the awareness to the block and the big toe, I want you to try to come up on the balls of your feet. So you're inhaling and you're coming up, and you're exhaling and you're lowering down. So we could call this a vinyasa because we're moving on the breath. We're linking the breath and the body together. So we're inhaling and we're rising up. Notice your focus. Okay, one more. Go ahead and rest. Take the block out for a moment. Just relax your legs, shake them out a little. When you use the block, or later when we use the strap, you're going to notice that we're working with stability. So go back again. This time I want you to bend the knees. I'm going to turn so you can see. So we're just going to bend the knees. That's all we're doing. We're not doing chair pose yet, okay? Keep your feet flat on the floor. And this time bring your arms forward. So as you inhale, bring your arms forward, eyes forward, sitting with your knees bent only, not your pelvis. Exhale and stand. Inhale, bend just the knees so you can see that my spine is still nice and straight. And I'm not pulling in any other muscle group at the moment. I'm just thinking about the block and the attention to my inner thighs. Movement gently. Now your movement might be bigger than mine, because if you can keep your heels on the floor and bend your knees more, you're welcome to do that, but I can't go that far. Okay, and then relax. Take the block out, shake your legs out. Okay, back you go. So this time what I want you to do is think about the connection, and it actually comes from our arches of our feet, but let's start here. As we gently put a little bit of pressure into the block, you engage those inner thigh muscles. Now pull the pelvic floor up, and then see if you can notice some engagement in the lower belly. I worked on this week in class. Now exhale, do all of that together, and then inhale and let it relax. Exhale, draw the legs toward the block, lift the pelvic floor and engage the lower belly. And if you're moving your trunk at all, you're doing things with the big muscles of your body, I want you to get deep inside. Next, exhale. Next, inhale, release it, bring your arms up over your head. Exhale, engage inner thigh, pelvic floor, lower belly. Inhale, release it, let it go. Exhale. Now what we're working on here is just a simple thing to try to get you to engage these muscles that typically are not. Exhale. Okay, stop. All right, take the block away. I'm letting you take the block away because it's awkward. Do you find it awkward to be in this size, not this size, right? I find it awkward, but this is what the teachings tell us to do. So, all right, I'm going to turn now so you can see. So this time we're going to sit back in a little bit of a chair pose. So I want you to squeeze the block, bend the knees, and sit back slightly. So now we've got a hinge at the pelvis and a hinge at the knee. And the lower back and this whole body part did not move, okay? So you could consider that as you come standing. I want you to imagine that there's like a big wrap, corset, something, blanket around you this is not moving, and you sit back. You've got your weight now even in your feet. You're squeezing the block, you're drawing the pelvic floor and the lower belly up, but you're not moving the torso. Good, inhale, come on up. So the next one, we're going to go down and stay holding that. Can you bring your arms behind you like you're reaching to the wall? So keep the block action, keep the pelvic floor and the lower belly action, and see what it feels like to bring the arms forward. Can you still keep it? See what it feels like to bring the arms open. Can you still keep it? And last time, can you take the arms over your head and still keep it? Good. Inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, let it go. Take the block away. Now what I'd like to play with, we just did all of this action with the block. I'm going to ask you to put the block down for a minute, and we're going to do those motions a little bit together. And I want you to see if you can still hang on to it. Because the answer, if the answer is no, like, oh my God, I can't figure that out at all, then you need to use the block in your practice on a regular basis. Okay? So standing in Tadasana, neutral Tadasana. Pretend you have the block between your legs. All right, remember the first one? So we draw the energy into the midline, we engage the lower belly, and then we inhale and we come up off of our heels. And then we exhale and we lower down. Can you still keep that inner thigh, pelvic floor, and lower belly engaged like you had the block? Good. Second one, just bend the knees, bring the arms forward and up. Just the knees bend. Exhale, stand. Inhale, just the knees. Can you find the block, the imaginary block between your legs? Last time, bending the knees only, reach the arms up, tailbone heavy. Okay? Third one, Sitting back, chair pose, reaching the arms behind you. Do you have the same action? Block, pelvic floor, belly. Bring the arms forward. And you can see how my body is on an angle now. I'm going to keep it there and see if I can bring the arms up. Block, pelvic floor, belly. Inhale, rise. Exhale, rest. We'll do one more all the way around, one each, okay? So we're going to inhale and rise up on the heels. We're going to exhale and release down on the heels. We're going to inhale, bend just the knees, eyes are forward, spine is straight up and down. Exhale. And then inhale, chair pose, arms behind you, arms forward, and arms up. Block, pelvic floor, belly. Inhale, rise, and then exhale, release. Good. Shake everything out. So what is the answer? Do you need the block or don't you? Because if you need the block, it's a way to practice on a regular basis. Really important. So let's go back to the block. We're going to do another movement that's very common in yoga. We're only going to go halfway down though. Okay, so we're going back to that wide position. And this time I don't want the front of the block to push way out because it's probably going to feel like it's in your way. But make sure you feel like you got a hold of it. I'm going to turn again. So squeezing the block, lift the belly, roll the shoulders to the back body, palms forward, or maybe even laying in your lower back, either way. And you're going to fold forward. And what I don't want you to do is lock your knees, soften your knees a little bit, and you don't come any lower than parallel to the floor. This is a half forward fold. Now, this is where a lot of people get into trouble because they overwork this lower back. They don't have the hamstring strength or length to keep themselves in a stability place. So I want you to squeeze the block even more, lift the pelvic floor, and see if you can feel an extension of your spine with your arms either along your sides or in your lower back. You could even put your hands on your pelvis to see how that feels. Good. Inhale, come up to standing. Do it again. Exhale, fold halfway. So if you have lower back stuff going on, going all the way to the floor is probably counterintuitive for you. Roll the shoulders on your back, reach back now, get your upper body involved. Keep squeezing the block, keep lifting the pelvic floor and the lower belly. You're going to take your arms out to the side to come to standing. And then you're going to go back where you were. And don't come anywhere where you feel pinching or any familiar discomfort in your lower back. Don't go that low. I'm trying to get you to use your big muscles of your pelvis. Okay, one more time. And then come up to standing and take the block away. So remember I said in the beginning, stability and then mobility. We create stability in the body in symmetrical patterns like that. Everything is done the same on both sides. We don't put one leg in front like lunges or pigeon pose or any of that because we can't find all of that flexibility if we don't have the stability and the mobility. So it kind of goes in that line. Stability, mobility, and then increased mobility or flexibility. All right, so put the block down for a minute. You can see how this kind of class is a little different. I'm not doing the flow. I'm not doing movement to movement because it's not going to be helpful to you if I do that. I want you to take your feet so you're standing wide distance on your mat. You can change your mat position or just turn. So your feet are now, they're still asymmetrical, right? But they're just wider apart. Ask yourself how that feels in your body just in general. And then look down at your feet, and I don't want you to move the line of your heel. I want you to spin your left foot towards the short edge of your mat. And when you do that, notice what happens to your pelvis. Just notice that. Can you see on my body how as I turn my foot, my pelvis rotates a little? Because it has to. And then press this back heel further back. But you didn't change the line of the heel. It's still the same. Notice that your pelvis is asymmetrical now. It's not facing forward like it was. Do not force it to do that. That's one of the incorrect things that were taught years ago. And then bend your front knee so you're over your ankle and you're in a warrior stance. Now, can you find that imaginary block between your legs and draw your legs together, pelvic floor, lower belly? And then take your arms up to the sky and reach. Now, I'm not telling you to turn toward me, but naturally you will do that because of the reach of the arms. And you have a natural, slow spinal movement going all the way up rather than just trying to torque yourself around. Okay, if this doesn't feel challenging enough, take the arms out. Palms can be up or down, looking over your front arm. Very traditional warrior two pose. Keep thinking about the block and the pelvic floor and the belly, because that's what's going to create this uniform stability so that you can move around. Go ahead and straighten your legs. Go ahead and release your hands, square your feet. So let's go the other way. So your right foot spins on its heel towards the edge of your mat and the left heel spins back. And then just notice where your pelvis is in space. Leave it there and bend your knee. Remember I said earlier where the pelvis goes, the sacrum and the spine follow. And then just reach up. And you can reach up and think about, oh, I'm looking to the long edge of my mat, but I'm not trying to torque myself there. Find your block, find your pelvic floor, find your belly. This is considered an asymmetrical pose, and when we get into these over and over and over and over again without stability, we can get in trouble. Arms down, look over your left or right hand, sorry. Spine is lengthening up, really heavy in the legs, strong action with the block, pelvic floor and belly. Good. Straighten the leg and bring your feet to square. All right. Second pose. Now this is where this teaching, it's kind of it's a funny way to try and describe it. So I'll show it to you in my body. Whenever we try to take the body somewhere that the pelvis is not going with us, they actually call that spinal leveraging, where there's this heavy weight of our head and our body trying to go one side, but the pelvis is holding us in place. And so all this weight that goes over here, most people will feel it across their lower back. It doesn't feel good to them, right? So if we turn the feet again and we go back to the other side, so your left foot turned towards the edge of your mat, your right heel. I'm going to take you through warrior two again. So arms open, bend the knee, reach the arms, so that we keep looking for the length of the spine and the anchoring and the stability here. Now, a very common second move is to bring the elbow down onto the thigh and bring the arm along the ear. So stay there. You can see that my pelvis actually kind of came with me. This is a pretty good normal action. You could even come up a little higher if that felt better to you, like just rest on your hand, right? This other arm doesn't have to do anything. But if we're down here and we're up like this, we start to look like triangle pose, and now the pelvis is going up and our spine is going that way, and it can be really cattywampus for our lower back. So the lower the pelvis can be, the more in line it is with the spine, the better. Okay? Find the block between your legs, pelvic floor, lower belly. Notice if that doesn't start to feel better when you engage those muscles. Inhale, come up. Bring your feet to square. We'll do the other side. So asymmetrical poses are the ones that can bother us. So that's why I'm going through this real slowly so you can actually see and feel it in your body. Knee over the ankle. Okay? Reach up for warrior, that warrior kind of feeling where the spine's getting longer. And then see if you want to come down on your forearm and bring this arm along your ear. So if your pelvis is high because your stance is shorter, this is going to feel too hard. So maybe then your hand comes onto your leg and you're doing a modified version here. Or you could slide your leg back farther, deepen your action in your leg, and now my pelvis is lined up with my spine. Pelvic floor, squeeze the block, pelvic floor, belly. Every time you do it, you might feel more and more engagement, and that's a really good thing. Inhale, come up. Feet square, walk your feet together. All right. Shake everything out. So I'm not going to go through all the different poses because this would not be an hour class. But what I do want you to remember is that if you're doing something symmetrical, like chair, it's safer, more stabilizing to the back in general. Anytime you do asymmetrical anything, it's less stable, okay? So let's do one wonky one, and you can hold a wall or a chair or something if you need it. We're gonna just do tree pose, and I'm gonna show you how that can get weird. So you've got your pelvic bones, right, and they're level. You could bring your feet all the way together just to give yourself a base of stability. And even from here, can you squeeze your legs and pull up your pelvic floor and belly? And can you notice right away how that makes this feel better? Especially if you have kind of low-grade pain all the time. Now stand on your right leg and release your left leg and turn it out to the side, and do not turn your hip bones. Do not let your body torso, okay? So the knee might not come out very far. Pelvic floor, block, belly, bring the foot up. I don't care where the foot goes, it can go wherever you want, but most people will take it up here, they'll turn their torso because they think the knee has to face the wall, and then they've torqued their body again. So I'm going to just put it down for me so I can stay here and show you. Pelvic rim is level. Shoulders are level. Reach your arms up if you can. So now we're asymmetrical, but we're working in this stability. Can you push your foot into your leg and your leg into your foot? Pelvic floor, belly. Good. Remember, it's a really common practice to try to pull this knee way out, and then you've torqued this pelvis. Please don't do that. Release yourself down and come to the floor. When I was first learning how to teach yoga, and this was back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of that teaching. You know, turn your leg out and turn it way out to face the ceiling of the wall, and then we had to try and turn our pelvis back. Well, a lot of us aren't put together that way. And I am convinced that's why my back bothers me now, is because we had all these teachings and all this kind of same over and over and over kind of practices. So let's go to the other side. Squeeze the legs and then find that core stability first. Find that place where you know you can work from. Then turn your foot open. Put your foot somewhere. Remember, you can hold, I've got a wall behind me. You can hold a chair. And then if you can, reach up the arms, because that'll help you come up and out of this area that tends to be a little bit compressed. Remember, if you're doing one arm, you can hold on to something and do one arm. It's okay. Now, press your foot into your leg. Find the inner thighs, belly, pelvic floor. This is where things can get harder because we're trying to balance on only one leg. Good. Release. Come all the way down. Shake it out. Notice I have not done any lunges. Notice I have not done any full forward bending. You're probably like, doesn't feel like a yoga practice. But ask yourself how your body's starting to feel. All right. Let's go down on the floor. I want you to lay down on your belly. And as you lay down on your belly, can you just put your hands under your forehead for a minute and bring your legs more into neutral? Just sort of check in with how you feel. So I want you to try this little action with me. So bend your right knee and flex your foot like it's facing the ceiling. Let go of the left leg, it's not doing anything. And I want you to press the right thigh and knee down into the floor. And ask yourself if that feels good to your lower back. And now release it and see if you can float your knee off the floor. Notice I didn't say lift it, I just said float it. And ask yourself if that feels good in your lower back. And try that again. Press down. And then lift up. And we'll do one more like that. Press down. Now what we're doing is we're doing an asymmetrical action, but we're keeping our pelvis and our torso completely still. Release your leg. Ask yourself if that felt hard. If that felt hard, we're working with the psoas, believe that or not. So bend your leg, other side. Press the left leg down, about 20%. It doesn't have to be the hardest thing you've ever done. And then lift the left leg, float it off the floor. Oh, that side's way harder for me. Left leg presses down. Foot's facing the ceiling. And then left leg tries to float up. If you find weakness, that's good information for you to work with. And this is a simple thing. Pressing down, last cycle. And then lifting up. And we want to hold it for about 3 seconds or so. And then let it release. Let your hips wiggle side to side. So a lot of people's psoas that runs into the front of the body and around the lower back is tight. And when it's tight, it's weak. So if you found that exercise to be hard, it would be a good one for you to practice. Okay? Second motion here, head on your hands, please. Feet down, press down through the tips of your toes so that your kneecaps are off the floor, and engage that imaginary block, pelvic floor, lower belly. From here, just lift your head and shoulders. Most people can engage here. Alrighty? See what that feels like. Can you still keep the block and the pelvic floor and the belly? And then lower down. Now this time, bring your forearms next to your torso, head on the floor. So elbows are down, hands are down. Press through the tops of your feet, kneecaps are up. Pretend to squeeze the block and the pelvic floor and the lower belly engage. And then lift your chest and head up, but keep your elbows down. So this is a modified cobra pose. Really healthy for the lower back, but only where you can go. Do not bring yourself anywhere where you feel like it's way too hard. And then release. Take your arms down by your side now, palms down. And I like to lift my hands up off the floor and roll the shoulders together so that I feel more engagement in my upper back. Float your head off the floor. That's all you're doing. Press down through your feet. Lift up your kneecaps. Squeeze your legs together. Imaginary block. Finding that stability, and then see if you can raise your chest at all. Okay? Keeping the feet down, the kneecaps up, the engagement in the block, the pelvic floor, the lower belly, and then you rise up where you can. Again, very stabilizing for the lower back and the sacrum. Go where you go. It could be 1 inch off the floor. It could be 6 inches. Release and rest. Turn your head to one side and take a moment. Turn your head the other way, please. And then push yourself up away from the floor so you come up into table. Turn your toes under. So you're welcome to just stay here, or you're welcome to go into downward facing dog. Now, if you go into downward facing dog, this is exactly like forward bending. So bend your knees. Extend your sitting bones up to lengthen your spine. Have your feet around neutral position together, and then imagine squeezing the block, lifting the pelvic floor and the lower belly. The legs do not need to be straight, especially if we're thinking about this action here with the back. Okay, lower yourself down. Now, we're going to try it with the block. All right? So that's the hardest part, is figuring out how to get the block between your legs to do your downward facing dog. So, have the block middle of the thighs to upper thighs, not anywhere near your knees. Have them on the second position in the block, not the little skinny one. And then lift yourself up, keep the knees bent, feet should be neutral distance apart, not wide. And I want you to squeeze the block with your knees bent, find your pelvic floor and belly, and reach back and up. Pretend I have a hold of your hips, and I'm lengthening through your spine. Ask yourself if it feels better with the block. You might think, well, it kind of feels weird, but it might feel better. And this is stability for your sacrum and lower back. Knees bent to keep your hamstrings out of it. Good, and release and come down. Okay. Have a lie down on your back. So this is where we're going to use the block and the strap both. We've been working with the inner thighs all along, so I'd like you to try the strap. I don't want to run out of time and not do that. So what we're going to do, and you guys that have your own makeshift strap, you might have to tie it in a knot. But we're going to put it around our thighs. And if you happen to have a yoga strap, make the loop, you know, work it through the actual loops, and then tighten it so that your legs are what I'm going to call neutral. Okay, so if you push out against the strap a little bit, there's some tension on the strap, but your feet and your knees aren't widening. So if you have something homemade at home, just tie a knot around the space. It's important that you don't make it too loose, and that when you push out, your knees bow out. Really do not do that. So I could, even if I wanted to, make mine a little tighter. And so now we're going to do the opposite action. And this is where you might find some really interesting information for yourself. And while you're finishing up, I want you to just find your lower back neutral. So I like to rock my pelvis back and forth a couple times. I'm not going side to side, I'm going up and down or back and forth. And then I'm going to find a place where my back feels really happy. Shoulders are on the mat. And all I want you to do is press out into the strap like we've been squeezing the block, about 20%. And then slow motion release it. We're going to do about 5 of those. Just press out nice and slow. Ask yourself, oh, does that feel good in my back? And then release it. Because the reality is, based on what part of your SI and lower back is problematic, the external push or getting the outer part of the spine and the legs to become active might be beneficial to you versus the squeezing one. And then release it. So that's 3. We're trying to do nice and slow. Gently push out, get to about the 20%. Do not go to 100%. That will not make it better. And then slowly release. And noticing if you're moving anything else. Notice how I'm not telling you to engage your pelvic floor and lower belly here. This is more about outer legs, outer hips, and outer lower back area. Good, and release. Now, finding and keeping that lower back neutral, can you push out and start to lift up? So keeping the push and lifting up.
And people that are used to doing different kinds of actions in their yoga practice might all of a sudden go, wow, that feels better than it's ever felt. And then keep the push and lower down. Now the opposite might be true. You might hate this pushing out thing, and if that's the case, get rid of it. One more time, pushing out gently, lifting up the pelvis. Now it's common, right? Common, bridge poses common in classes. How does it make you feel when you do them? And then lower back down. Okay, stop for a moment. And I typically will teach this in my classes, and it's a nice way to see if your psoas is tight. Take the heels of your hands to the crease of your pelvis and press like you're trying to push your legs away from your torso. Let go of your lower back, let go of any holding. And if you're feeling anything in your lower back, deep inside, that's usually that your psoas is tight. And where there's tightness, there's weakness, remember? And then let all of that go. Okay, slide the strap away from you. We could spend an entire hour just doing stuff like that, but I want you to try it one more time with the block. Same thing we've been doing. Block between the thighs, feet underneath the legs. Block in the second position. And then I want you to slowly squeeze the block in this position and tell me how that feels. How does that feel? Better? Not so better? Slowly release it. Did pushing out on the strap feel better than pulling in on the block? So squeezing the block again, 20%, this time lifting the hips. So I can tell you for me, the pushing out of the strap felt much better than the squeezing of the block here. And release. So you have to know what you need. One more time, squeezing the block gently and then lifting the hips. And then noticing I'm not asking you to do anything asymmetrical. Release and come down. Because remember the primary teachings. Take the block away. Let your legs go down to the floor for a second. Primary teaching of this class is stability before mobility and flexibility. And then bring both knees to your chest. Feel free to open the knees wherever you like. Maybe rock side to side. Maybe even pick up your head.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
If it feels better, as it did for me, like it did for you, pushing out as opposed to pushing in, what does that tell me?
It usually tells you that the way your SI joint and your lumbar spine are situated, they need to be kind of pushed together more. When you're pushing the legs out, that actually brings those areas in closer. And when you're pushing the legs together, it actually separates them a little bit more. So you need a little bit more compression or outer body pushing into the middle body more. Yeah. Okay. Last thing. A little bit of core work. Not unfamiliar if you take my classes. But this is the safest, and if you watched my my video, I think I shared some of this with you. So I want you to bring your legs up so that they're parallel, like you're sitting in a chair. Legs are parallel to the floor, knees are sitting over the pelvis. Take your hands to the front of your thighs. Elbows by your side, shoulders, neck open. And just 20% now. Press your legs into your hands and your hands into your legs. Lower back should be in neutral. Now, see if you can pretend to find the block. I could have told you to put it between you, but just see if you can engage the legs and the pelvic floor and the lower belly while you do this isometric contraction. Breathe. And when you're breathing and you're using these lower core areas, you're breathing a little bit more in the rib cage. And then exhale, let it go. Pause. A really interesting thing that I learned from Donna Farhi, who is a yogi master in the world of alignment and spines, said that there was a big research study done on whether core strength alone helped lower back issues. And the answer was no. You need to have the other pieces. You need to have the stability in the pelvis and the sacrum. You need to have the mobility piece in order for the core piece to come into play. Now, I think they were talking about traditional core exercises and not these tiny little things that I'm doing. But it's good to remember, bring your legs up. My core is really strong. I can do a lot of work and I still have lower back stuff going on. So that really resonated to me. Okay, one more time. Hands on the thighs, shoulders, elbows by your side. Press into your legs. Now, if you're a little bit stronger and you want more work and you can handle it, leave your right hand on your right thigh and stretch your left leg and your left arm back behind you. So left leg goes back, left arm goes back. Still holding everything, can you now find the imaginary block, the pelvic floor, and the lower belly? If you're still just with two legs, hands on legs, stay there. And then the people that are doing two sides, switch, please. Okay, so I always feel different on my right, which is what I'm working on now, versus my left. Feels like a good thing. And then slowly come back up to center and then let your legs relax. Take a breath. And the thing to remember when you're working on stability is if you find, let's say you find 3 or 5 things that really feel good to you, do them every day. So in Jean's case, she asked about the pressing out and that felt better. She could do that every day to help build stability back into her spine so that she could actually have greater range of motion. All right, crisscross your left ankle over your right knee. This is another common action. You guys all know I'm preaching to the choir because you guys take my classes. But if you do that and your pelvis rotates open, kind of like in a sloppy way, I want you to organize yourself back to neutral. Let the leg do what it wants to do. And then lift everything up, but don't push your lower back into the floor. So you can hold your legs if you want. I'm just going to hold my shin. Now, I want you to pretend you've got the block between your legs. So engage your legs, lift your pelvic floor, lift your belly, and still work with this stretch. Release and come down. Switch. Same thing. Don't let your back push into the floor. It might feel good initially, but then remember what I told you about the twisting and the popping. It actually makes us more unstable. So keep everything neutral and then bring your legs towards you. Hold somewhere that's comfortable. It doesn't have to be the deepest thing you've ever done. And then finding the legs, the pelvic floor, and the belly while you work on your hip mobility. So hips tightness is very often related to lower back stuff, along with tight hamstrings and tight quadriceps. Release and let it go. Okay. Legs go all the way down for a minute. This is a nice action just to engage the entire back body without doing a back bend. So arms down by your side, palms down, press into the hands, press into the shoulders, press into the back of the head, 20%. Now, press into your heels, press into your legs and your buttocks. Try to think about pushing yourself down more into the floor. 20%. I have to keep saying it because I do more than that all the time. And what you might notice is that one leg is pushing more than the other, or one arm is pushing more than the other. Take one more breath. And then exhale, soften everything and let it go. Now, one more thing, if you want to play with the strap. Yeah, we're at 10 o'clock. So if I have my strap and I left it the way it was and I put it around my legs again, you don't have to do this because we're going to rest. But if I did that and then I let my legs come down, my legs cannot float open. And what that does is it disallows my body to go into that hypermobility or unstable place in my lower back that I might be in a lot. And so try that if you have your strap with you and you feel like you want to play with this idea. And then I actually walk my heels out a little bit wider so that when my legs relax, my feet are, if I look down, my feet are neutral. And then we'll just rest here for a few moments here. You might want to just relax everything and see how your body feels. Maybe go back to that idea of a longer exhale. Working on that vagal tone. And if you don't have a strap and you don't want to strap your legs and putting your legs down all the way on the floor doesn't feel comfortable, then just go ahead and keep your knees bent.
Take a deeper breath. And allow that breath to awaken your body. Gently move and stretch in any way that feels good to you. As you feel ready, please bend your knees. Roll to your right side. And slowly make your way to sitting. Once you're seated, just allow yourself to have a moment to check in. A little bit of a different class. Might have been what you expected, might have not. Just notice how your body feels. Notice if your breath feels any deeper. Let's bring the hands together to close the practice. As you raise the breastbone, softly bow the head. In gratitude for you showing up for you. In gratitude for the teachings in all of our experiences that we have. And in gratitude for our own deep inner light. May our light always shine brightly, and may we always see the light in each other. Namaste.